era of Xbox 360, PS3, and the Nintendo Wii saw some of the first major rises of video game nostalgia, thanks to the rise of the internet giving retro games new life and the natural phenomenon of people getting old. This was helped by each system this generation having services to buy old games for your new console. More people than ever were able to check out classic games, both popular and niche, which led to many developers making new entries in series that haven't seen major action since the 80s and 90s. And Nintendo was not immune, as the Punch-Out series would unexpectedly get a new game on the Nintendo Wii in 2009, developed by Nintendo's favorite Canadians, Next Level Game. Honestly, this makes sense in retrospect, as the Wii came packaged with Wii Sports, which had the mode of boxing, so building a more concrete video game around motion-controlled boxing sounded like a slam dunk for both longtime Nintendo fans and casuals. While the Punch-Out series started as an arcade title, the most popular entry in the franchise was the NES version, which is beloved for its expressive, hardware-pushing art direction, its difficult yet memorable bosses, and the way it translated boxing fundamentals into fun, almost puzzle-like gameplay. The Wii version aimed to replicate all of this and more to phenomenal success, even being the final push to get Little Mac memorialized in future Smash Bros. Games as a playable character, becoming a true Nintendo and video game icon in the process. And now to gush about how amazing this game is, and by extension, why Nintendo needs to re-release it on a modern system so more people can play it, because setting up emulation on my Steam Deck was a pain. We'll start by talking about the visual presentation, which still holds up today. The NES version of Punch-Out had tons of personality and color that the game needed its own unique chipset just to translate the basic arcade format to home consoles. But with vast improvements in technology since the NES, the Wii version could have easily rested on its laurels and do the bare minimum in terms of graphics, especially because the Wii was underpowered compared to the 360 and PS3. But no, the team behind this game went above and beyond for the presentation, translating the funny facial expressions from the NES version to the Wii with a cartoony, cel-shaded art style that fits Punch-Out so well and has made the game held up visually compared to its peers. The visual splendor even helps you with the gameplay, as these animations smartly telegraph weaknesses and blind spots for the boxers. Speaking of, all of the boxer bosses, plus Little Mac's coach Doc Lewis, have voice acting to enhance their already big personalities, bringing some extra comedy to the proceeding.
Duck this one!
They still lead into cultural stereotypes for each boxer, which is apparently one of the reasons why Nintendo is hesitant to give the series another game, which is understandable, but I do think the devs fleshed most of the characters out beyond their culture. Besides, if Nintendo is really worried about this aspect of the series being the reason they can't bring it back, I think there's two options to circumvent this in the future. They can do what Capcom's been doing with the original Street Fighter II cast and keep bringing them back with more depth in each installment, or they could just make new bosses from scratch. Both options I'd be down to see, but I think the latter would be more interesting, especially from a gameplay perspective. As for the gameplay, Punch-Out boils down to figuring out your opponent's patterns through precise timing and dodging, which does make each Punch-Out boss feel a little puzzle-like, both how fast these fighters move and good it feels to casually throw punches. Playing Punch-Out optimally doesn't feel like you're solving a puzzle, but in the midst of an intense fight. A fight that can feel quite one-sided if you know what you're doing, but the challenge does ramp up as the game goes on. It helps that if you're playing the NES version, a lot of your strategies for the returning bosses will work. In the main game at least, because there is a post-game where all the bosses get new, harder patterns and buffs never before seen till now. I could go on and on, but the point is, I really love the Wii Punch-Out game. The expressive presentation and tight gameplay make for some surprisingly interesting characterization for the cast of bosses you fight, especially when you get to their rematches to see how they adapt to their loss. Which kinda makes the game two excellent sports movies in one great package. This is one of my favorite games any Nintendo system has to offer, and I'm still holding out hope that Nintendo will realize this and give us a modern port, but of course, there's other ways to play the game, if you're willing to go through the headache of setting up emulator controlling mapping on a Wii remote.
Good job, son. Good job.